Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his face as he checked the air quality readings on his tablet. The numbers looked normal for planet Kepler 442b, but something felt different today. The air seemed thicker, and the usual sounds of the alien forest were quiet. He had been working alone at the research station for 6 months now. The small building sat on a hill overlooking the purple grass plains. Jake was a scientist who studied alien life forms, but so far he had only found small creatures like bugs and birds. Nothing big or dangerous. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jake was about to pack up his equipment when his motion sensor started beeping loudly. He looked at the screen and saw something that made his heart race. Large shapes were moving toward his station from the north. Very large shapes. Jake grabbed his binoculars and stepped outside. At first he saw nothing but the rolling hills and strange purple trees. Then something moved in the distance. Something huge. A shadow passed over him. Jake looked up and his mouth fell open. Flying above was the biggest creature he had ever seen. It looked like a dragon from old Earth stories, but this was real. Its wings stretched wider than his research building. Scales covered its body like armor, and they seemed to glow with their own light. The dragon was not alone. Jake could see others in the distance, but this one was flying straight toward him. As it got closer, he could see that something was wrong. The dragon's flight was unsteady, and it seemed to be carrying something. Jake's first thought was to run inside and call for help. But something stopped him. The dragon was not flying like a hunter. It was flying like something desperate. The massive creature landed hard about 50 feet from Jake's station. The ground shook under its weight. Jake could now see that it was even bigger than he first thought. The dragon was nearly 60 feet long from nose to tail. Its scales were a deep blue-green color that changed to silver in the dying sunlight. But what made Jake's chest tight was what the dragon carried. Held gently in its front claws was a much smaller dragon. This young one was only about the size of a large dog. Its scales were dull and gray, and Jake could see that it was breathing hard. The mother dragon looked directly at Jake. Her eyes were the color of honey, and they held something Jake had never seen in an animal before: intelligence and pain. Then the dragon did something that shocked Jake to his core. She began to make a sound unlike anything he had ever heard. It was part roar, part song, and part cry. The sound went through Jake's body and made his bones vibrate. But more than that, the sound carried emotion so strong that Jake felt tears come to his eyes. Jake's universal translator, a device meant to help communicate with any life forms they might find, started making noise. The machine was trying to understand what the dragon was saying, but it was struggling. Finally, words appeared on the small screen. "Help, please. Young one sick. Help." Jake stared at the words. This was first contact with an intelligent alien species. He should follow protocol. He should call his bosses and let them handle this. But looking at the mother dragon holding her dying child, Jake knew there was no time for protocol. The dragon watched Jake carefully as he slowly walked toward her. She was bigger than a house, and her claws could cut him in half without effort. But Jake could see that she was trying not to scare him. She held very still as he approached. When Jake was about 10 feet away, the dragon gently placed her young one on the ground between them. The little dragon's eyes were closed and its breathing was shallow. Jake could see that its scales, which should have been bright and strong, were cracked and falling off. Jake knelt down and pulled out his medical scanner. The device was made to work on any type of life form. As he pointed it at the young dragon, numbers and charts filled the screen. What he saw made his stomach drop. The little dragon was dying. Its body was failing in ways that Jake had never seen before. The scan showed that the creature's scales were not just decoration. They were part of its nervous system, like a second skin that helped it live. And they were breaking down. The mother dragon made soft sounds as Jake worked. The translator was getting better at understanding her language. It showed new words on the screen. Others sick too. Many young ones dying. "You can help?" Jake looked up at the massive creature. In her eyes he saw hope mixed with fear. She had brought her most precious thing to a total stranger because she had nowhere else to turn. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Instead of calling for backup, instead of following the rules he had learned, he looked at the mother dragon and nodded. "I will try," he said out loud. "I will try to help your baby." The dragon's eyes seemed to brighten. She made a sound that Jake's translator could not convert to words, but he understood it anyway. It was the sound of a mother who had found hope when she thought all was lost. As the alien sun set completely and the first stars appeared in the sky, Jake began the most important work of his life. He had no idea if he could save the young dragon. He had no idea what this would mean for humanity's future among the stars. All he knew was that a mother had asked him to help her child, and he could not say no. Jake spent the entire night studying the young dragon. He set up his portable medical equipment around the small creature while the mother watched every move he made. The dragon mother, who Jake had started thinking of as Big Blue because of her beautiful scales, never moved more than a few feet away. The medical scans showed something Jake had never seen before. The young dragon's body was not like any earth animal. Its bones were partly made of crystal, and its blood carried tiny metal particles that glowed under his scanner. Most strange of all, the scales were not just skin. They were like tiny computer chips that carried electrical signals throughout the dragon's body, and they were all failing. Jake worked by the light of his portable lamps while Big Blue hummed softly to her child. The sound was soothing, and Jake noticed that when she hummed, the young dragon's breathing got a little easier. There was clearly a connection between them that went beyond what humans understood. By morning, Jake had learned enough to be both amazed and worried. The young dragon was like a living machine made of flesh, crystal, and metal. But whatever was making it sick was attacking the crystal parts of its body. The scales were turning gray and cracking because the crystal inside them was breaking down. Jake tried to feed the little dragon some water with nutrients, but it barely swallowed. Its energy was getting weaker by the hour. Big Blue had not left its side all night, and Jake could see the fear in her eyes growing stronger. As the sun came up, Jake noticed something that made his heart sink. In the distance, he could see more shapes moving across the plains. More dragons were coming, and they all seemed to be carrying something. Within an hour, 3 more dragons had arrived at Jake's station. Each one carried a sick young dragon. The babies were all showing the same signs: gray, cracking scales, and weak breathing. Jake realized this was not just one sick dragon. This was an epidemic. The dragons were all different sizes and colors, but they all acted the same way. They placed their young ones near Jake's equipment and then watched him with hopeful eyes. Through his translator, Jake heard the same words over and over. "Help, please help. Our children are dying." Jake felt the weight of their trust pressing down on him. These creatures had somehow decided that he, a human they had never met before, was their best hope. But Jake was just one person with basic medical equipment. He was not prepared for this. He called Big Blue over to his translator and tried to ask her questions. Where did the sickness start? How many young dragons were affected? Did the adult dragons ever get sick like this? Big Blue's answers, filtered through the struggling translator, painted a terrible picture. The sickness had started about 3 months ago. At first, only a few young dragons got sick. Now it was spreading faster. Adult dragons never got sick this way, only the young ones who were still growing their adult scales. Jake asked the most important question. Have there been any changes in your world? Anything different in the last few months? Big Blue thought for a long moment. Then she said something that made Jake's blood run cold. Skymen came. They dig deep holes in the northern mountains. They take the singing stones. Jake's hand shook as he typed into his computer. He pulled up the files on human activities on Kepler 442b. There it was. Galactic Mining Corporation had started operations in the northern continent 3 months ago. They were mining rare earth metals that were used in human technology. The same metals that Jake's scans showed were crucial to dragon biology. Jake realized what was happening. The mining was taking away minerals that the dragons needed to survive. The young dragons, who were still developing, could not build healthy scales without these elements. They were essentially starving for the minerals their bodies needed to function. But understanding the problem and fixing it were 2 different things. Jake looked at the 4 dying young dragons around his station and felt helpless. Even if he could prove that human mining was causing this, it would take months or years to change anything. These babies did not have months. They might not have days. Jake made a decision that went against everything he had been taught about first contact. He was supposed to observe and report, not interfere. But looking at the mother dragons and their dying children, he knew he could not just watch. He opened his emergency medical supplies and began mixing something that had never been tried before. Using his knowledge of crystal growth and mineral supplements meant for human colonists, Jake created a mixture that might give the young dragons what their bodies were missing. The first dragon to try Jake's treatment was Big Blue's child. Jake carefully injected the mineral mixture into the small dragon's bloodstream, while Big Blue watched anxiously. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then slowly, one of the gray scales on the young dragon's neck began to show a hint of blue. The other mother dragons moved closer, making excited sounds. Jake's translator was picking up words like hope and healing and miracle. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. He had maybe bought these babies a little more time, but he had not cured them. Over the next few hours, all 4 young dragons showed small signs of improvement. Their breathing became easier, and a few scales on each one began to regain some color. But Jake could see that his supplies were already running low. If more sick dragons came, he would not have enough medicine for all of them. As if reading his thoughts, Big Blue approached him with something Jake had not expected. Intelligence that went far beyond what he had imagined. She began to draw in the dirt with her claw, making symbols and patterns. The translator struggled to keep up, but gradually Jake began to understand. Big Blue was showing him a map. She was telling him where the dragon communities lived, how many young ones were sick, and where the humans were mining. She was giving him information that could help him understand the full size of the problem. Jake looked at the map drawn in the dirt and felt overwhelmed. According to Big Blue, there were over 100 sick young dragons across the continent. His small medical supplies could not save them all. But as he looked up at the mother dragons watching him with such trust and hope, Jake knew he had to try. He began planning what he would need to save an entire generation of dragons. The plan forming in his mind was dangerous and would probably end his career. But as he watched the young dragons breathing a little easier thanks to his medicine, Jake realized some things were more important than careers. Jake knew he needed help, but he also knew he could not tell the whole truth. If he reported first contact with intelligent dragons, the military would come first, then the scientists, then the corporations. The dragons would become test subjects or worse. Their sick children would become research projects instead of patients who needed care. So Jake lied. He sent a message to his research partner, Dr. Lisa Parker, back at the main base. In the message, Jake said he had discovered some interesting rock formations that might contain new mineral deposits. He needed more medical supplies and mineral samples to study what he called theoretical biological effects of environmental changes. Lisa had worked with Jake for 3 years. She trusted him, and she was good at getting supplies quickly without asking too many questions. Within 2 days, a supply drone dropped off everything Jake had requested. But Jake's problems were getting bigger faster than his supplies could grow. Word had somehow spread through the dragon communities that a human could help sick young dragons. By the end of the week, Jake had 12 mother dragons camped around his station, each with a dying child. Jake worked day and night, mixing mineral supplements and injecting them into young dragons. His treatments were working, but only temporarily. The scales would brighten for a few hours or days, then start to fade again. Jake realized he was fighting the symptoms, not the cause. The real problem was the mining operation in the north. As long as humans kept taking the minerals that dragons needed, the sickness would continue. Jake needed to find a way to stop the mining, but Galactic Mining Corporation was one of the most powerful companies in human space. They would not stop operations because one scientist said it was hurting alien creatures that nobody knew existed. Jake was facing an impossible choice. To save the dragons, he would have to reveal their existence. But revealing their existence might put them in even more danger from humans who saw them as threats or resources to be used. The choice was made for him when something unexpected happened. Jake was treating a young dragon early one morning when his computer started making strange noises. The screen flickered, then showed symbols he had never seen before. Jake thought the computer was broken until he realized what was happening. Big Blue was standing next to his computer, and one of her claws was touching the metal case. Somehow she was communicating directly with his machine. The strange symbols on the screen changed into words that Jake could read, but they were not coming from his translator. They were coming from Big Blue herself. Human Jake, the words appeared on his screen. We have watched your kind for many seasons. We learn your talking ways from the sky voices you send to each other. We know you are not bad, but your people take what we need to live. Jake stared at the screen in shock. The dragons could understand human technology. They had been listening to human communications. They knew far more about humans than humans knew about them. More words appeared. Our young ones die because the mountain stones are gone. We cannot make the life scales without the singing metals. Your people take them all. Jake found his voice. How long have you known about humans? Since your ships first came to our world. We watch, we listen, we learn. We wait to see if your people are friends or enemies. Now we have no choice. We must ask for help or watch our children die. Jake realized that this was not just first contact. This was a desperate species making themselves known because they had no other choice. The dragons had been planning to reveal themselves eventually, but the mining crisis had forced their hand. What do you want me to do? Jake typed on his computer. Stop the mountain digging. Save our young ones. We will give you knowledge in return. We know things about the crystal metal flesh that your people want to learn. Jake understood that Big Blue was offering a trade, dragon knowledge in exchange for human help. But Jake still faced the same problem. How could he convince humans to stop a profitable mining operation to save aliens they did not know existed? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Lisa Parker arrived unannounced for what she called a routine inspection of Jake's work. Jake knew she was really coming because his supply requests had been so unusual. Lisa's helicopter landed just as Jake was treating 3 young dragons. There was no way to hide what was happening. Lisa stepped out of the aircraft and froze when she saw the massive dragons surrounding Jake's station. Jake, Lisa said slowly, please tell me you have a very good explanation for this. Jake looked at his friend and partner. Lisa was tough and smart, but she was also kind. If anyone would understand what Jake was trying to do, it would be her. Lisa, Jake said, I need you to listen to everything before you make any decisions. Jake told Lisa the whole story, about the sick young dragons, about the connection to the mining, about the dragons' intelligence and their knowledge of humans. Lisa listened without interrupting, but Jake could see her mind working behind her eyes. When Jake finished, Lisa was quiet for a long time. Then she walked over to Big Blue, who had been watching the conversation carefully. Can you really communicate with our computers? Lisa asked. Big Blue touched Lisa's tablet and words appeared on the screen. Dr. Parker, we know your work with biological systems. Your people and our people can help each other, but first our children must live. Lisa looked around at all the mother dragons and their sick babies. Jake could see the moment when Lisa made her decision. Her face changed from cautious scientist to determined protector. What do you need? Lisa asked Jake. Together, Jake and Lisa worked out a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane. They would secretly document everything about the dragons and their sickness. They would prove the connection to the mining. Then they would release all the information at once to the press, the government, and every major scientific organization. It would destroy both of their careers, but it might save the dragons. Jake and Lisa spent the next week gathering evidence. They recorded hours of video showing the dragon's intelligence. They documented the medical effects of the mining on dragon biology. Most importantly, they recorded Big Blue demonstrating her ability to interface with human technology in ways that could revolutionize computing. As they worked, more dragons arrived. Jake's station was now surrounded by 23 mothers with sick children. His temporary treatments were keeping the young dragons alive, but barely. Jake knew they were running out of time. The night before they planned to release their evidence to the world, Jake sat with Big Blue under the alien stars. Through his computer, she told him about dragon history, about their ancient civilization, about their dreams of exploring the galaxy alongside other intelligent species. We hoped first meeting would be different, she wrote on his screen. We hope to come as equals, not begging for our children's lives. Jake looked at the magnificent creature beside him. After tomorrow, everything changes. I don't know if it will be better or worse for your people. We trust you, human Jake. You chose to help when you could have walked away. Your people will see that some things are more important than mountain stones. Jake hoped Big Blue was right. In a few hours, the whole galaxy would know that dragons existed. Whether that knowledge would save them or doom them depended on how humans chose to respond. Jake looked at the young dragons sleeping peacefully around his station, their scales glowing softly in the starlight thanks to his treatments. Tomorrow would bring either hope or disaster, but tonight these children were alive. Sometimes that was enough. Jake and Lisa sent their evidence to 47 different organizations at exactly the same time. News networks, scientific journals, government agencies, and environmental groups all received the same package. Video proof of intelligent dragons, medical data showing how human mining was killing their children, and recordings of dragon-human communication. Within 6 hours, Jake's story was spreading across the human galaxy faster than light-speed communications could carry it. Jake's personal communicator started ringing and never stopped. Every major news network wanted interviews. Government officials demanded explanations. The Galactic Mining Corporation's lawyers were already threatening lawsuits. But the story that captured everyone's attention was not the politics or the science. It was the image of massive, intelligent dragons bringing their dying children to a human scientist and trusting him to help. Dr. Rick Hamilton, CEO of Galactic Mining Corporation, arrived on Kepler 442b with a team of lawyers and corporate security within 24 hours. Jake knew this was trouble. Hamilton was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes who saw everything in terms of profit and loss. He stepped out of his expensive transport ship wearing a business suit that cost more than Jake made in a year. "Dr. Morrison," Hamilton said, not bothering with pleasantries, "you have violated your research contract, exceeded your authority, and made claims that could cost my company billions of credits. I'm here to shut down this circus." Jake stood between Hamilton and the dragons. "These are intelligent beings, Mr. Hamilton. Their children are dying because of your mining operations." "These are animals," Hamilton replied. "Dangerous animals that could threaten human colonists. And even if they were intelligent, which I doubt, human economic interests come first." Big Blue had been listening to the conversation through Jake's translator. Now she stepped forward, towering over Hamilton. The corporate executive tried to look brave, but Jake could see his hands shaking. Big Blue touched Jake's computer and words appeared on the screen. Jake read them aloud so everyone could hear. "Mr. Hamilton, we know your kind values trade. We offer knowledge your people have never imagined in exchange for our children's lives. Is profit more important to you than partnership?" Hamilton looked at the screen, then back at the massive dragon. "I don't negotiate with animals. Security, get these creatures away from our equipment." Hamilton's security team started to move forward, but they stopped when all 23 mother dragons stood up at once. The humans were suddenly surrounded by beings that could crush them without effort, but the dragons did not attack. They simply waited. Jake stepped between the two groups. "Mr. Hamilton, before you make a decision that could start a war, let me show you something." Jake nodded to Big Blue, who placed her claw on Jake's main computer. The screen lit up with technical diagrams that made Hamilton's engineers gasp. Blueprints for faster-than-light communication, energy storage systems that could power entire cities, and crystal-based computing that was centuries ahead of human technology. "This is what the dragons are offering," Jake said. "Partnership instead of conflict, knowledge instead of exploitation. All they want is for us to stop taking the minerals their children need to survive." Hamilton stared at the screen for a long time. Jake could see him calculating profits in his head. The technology the dragons were offering was worth far more than any mining operation. But Hamilton was not just greedy. He was also proud. He did not like being told what to do by anyone, especially not by aliens who threatened his authority. "I don't make deals with creatures that threaten human security," Hamilton said finally. "These dragons could be dangerous. We need to study them properly before making any agreements." Jake knew what study them properly meant. It meant capturing dragons for experiments. It meant treating them like lab animals instead of intelligent beings. "They're not threatening anyone," Jake said. "They're asking for help to save their children." "That's what they want you to think," Hamilton replied. "But what happens when these dragons decide they want more than just our mining sites? What happens when they decide humans are in their way?" The argument was interrupted by an alarm from Jake's medical equipment. One of the young dragons, a small green one whose scales had been brightening over the past few days, was suddenly getting worse. Its breathing became rapid and shallow and its scales started turning gray again. Jake rushed to the young dragon's side, but he already knew what was happening. His temporary treatments were wearing off faster than before. The little dragon's body was using up the mineral supplements quicker as it tried to grow its adult scales. The young dragon's mother, a golden dragon Lisa had named Sunshine, made desperate crying sounds as she watched her child struggle. Through the translator, her words filled the air. Please save my baby. I will do anything." Jake looked at his medical supplies. He had enough mineral supplements for maybe one more treatment for one dragon, but there were 23 sick young dragons here, and Big Blue had told him there were over 100 more across the continent. "I need more supplies," Jake said to Hamilton. Your ships have medical equipment. Your mining operation has the exact minerals these dragons need. You could save them all." Hamilton crossed his arms. "I'm not wasting company resources on animals." That was when Lisa did something that surprised everyone. She walked over to Hamilton's security team and started talking to them quietly. Jake could not hear what she was saying, but he could see the men's faces changing. Lisa had found out something that Jake had not thought to ask. Who were the security guards? It turned out they were not corporate soldiers. They were retired military personnel who had families back on Earth. "Gentlemen," Lisa said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "imagine your children were dying, and someone who could save them refused to help because it might cost money. How would that make you feel?" The head of security, a tough-looking man named Carlos Martinez, looked at the dying young dragon, then at its desperate mother, then at his boss. "Sir," Martinez said to Hamilton, "my daughter is about the same age as these dragon babies. If she was dying and someone could save her." Martinez did not finish the sentence, but he did not have to. Jake could see that Hamilton was losing control of his own people. The situation got worse for Hamilton when the Galactic News Network arrived. Reporter Jenny Walsh had been covering the dragon story since Jake first released his evidence. Now she was here with cameras, broadcasting live to billions of humans across the galaxy. This is Jenny Walsh reporting from Kepler 442b, where we are witnessing an unprecedented moment in galactic history. Behind me, you can see a young dragon fighting for its life while its mother pleads for help. CEO Rick Hamilton of Galactic Mining Corporation has the supplies that could save this child and over 100 others, but he is refusing to provide aid. Jake watched Hamilton's face as he realized his refusal to help was being broadcast live to the entire human galaxy. The corporate executive was many things, but he was not stupid. He knew what this looked like to people watching at home, but Hamilton's pride would not let him back down in front of cameras. Instead, he made a decision that shocked everyone. "Dr. Morrison," Hamilton said, "I'm placing you under arrest for violating corporate property rights and endangering human interests. Security, escort him to our ship." The security team looked uncomfortable, but they started to move toward Jake. That was when Big Blue and the other dragons made their decision. All 23 mother dragons stepped forward, forming a protective circle around Jake and Lisa. Their message was clear. If Hamilton wanted to arrest Jake, he would have to go through them first. Jake found himself standing in the center of a ring of beings who could destroy Hamilton's entire team without breaking a sweat. But the dragons were not being threatening. They were being protective. They were showing the galaxy that they considered Jake their friend, and they would not let him be taken away. Hamilton stared at the wall of dragons surrounding Jake. His security team looked at their boss, waiting for orders. The news cameras captured every moment. Jake knew this was the moment that would decide everything. If Hamilton ordered his men to attack, it would start a war between humans and dragons. If he backed down, it would show the galaxy that corporate interests could not override basic compassion. The young green dragon made a weak crying sound, and its mother's desperate wails filled the air. The baby was running out of time, and everyone watching across the galaxy could see it. Hamilton had to choose his pride or a child's life. The whole galaxy was watching to see what humanity would choose. The standoff lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. Hamilton stared at the dragons protecting Jake while billions of humans watched the live broadcast. The dying young dragon's cries grew weaker, and its mother's desperate sounds filled the silence. Then something happened that no one expected. Carlos Martinez, the head of security, stepped away from his team and walked toward Jake. The dragons watched him carefully but did not move to stop him. "Sir," Martinez said to Hamilton, "I quit." Martinez pulled his medical kit from his belt and handed it to Jake. "My daughter would never forgive me if I let a baby die when I could help." One by one, the other security guards followed Martinez's lead. They quit their jobs and offered their supplies to help treat the dragons. Within minutes, Hamilton was standing alone while his former employees worked with Jake to save the young green dragon. The live broadcast captured every moment. Across the galaxy, humans watched their own people choosing compassion over corporate loyalty. The message was clear. This was what humanity could be at its best. Hamilton tried to maintain control. "You're all making a mistake. These creatures could be dangerous." But his words were lost in the noise of celebration as the young green dragon's scales began to brighten again. Jake's treatment, boosted by the additional supplies from the security team, was working. The little dragon opened its eyes and made a soft sound that needed no translation. It was the sound of a child calling for its mother. Sunshine, the golden mother dragon, gently nuzzled her baby while making happy rumbling sounds. The other dragons added their voices in what sounded like a song of joy. Even through the translator, the emotion was clear to everyone watching. Jenny Walsh, the news reporter, wiped tears from her eyes as she spoke to the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, you are witnessing something extraordinary. Human compassion and alien intelligence working together to save a life. This is what first contact should look like. But the real shock was still to come. Big Blue approached the news cameras and placed her claw on the broadcasting equipment. Suddenly, her voice was being transmitted directly to every human watching across the galaxy. She had figured out how to speak through their communication networks. People of Earth and the colonies. Big Blue's voice was heard on billions of screens. We are the dragons of Kepler 442b. We have watched you for many seasons, learning your ways, hoping for friendship. Today, your people showed us the best of humanity. We offer you partnership. The technical diagrams that had amazed Hamilton's engineers appeared on screens across human space. But now Big Blue was explaining them in detail, showing humans how to build technology that would revolutionize their civilization. This is our gift to you, Big Blue continued. Not because you demand it, but because you showed kindness to our children. True strength is not in taking what you want, but in protecting those who need help. Hamilton watched his whole world changing on live television. The dragon technology was worth more than his entire corporation. Partnership with the dragons could make humanity the dominant force in the galaxy. But it would all depend on treating the dragons as equals, not resources to be exploited. The corporate executive made one last attempt to regain control. The Galactic Mining Corporation has legal rights to this planet. These dragons cannot simply give away technology that belongs to human shareholders. Big Blue turned her attention to Hamilton, and when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of an ancient civilization. Mr. Hamilton, this is our world. We have lived here for thousands of years before your people arrived. We offer partnership to humanity, but not to those who would harm our children for profit. Choose what you value more, our friendship or your mining rights. The choice was made for Hamilton by forces beyond his control. The news broadcast had reached Earth and the political reaction was swift. Within hours, the Galactic Senate had passed an emergency resolution declaring Kepler 442b a protected world. Mining operations were suspended pending negotiations with the Dragon civilization. Hamilton's corporate board fired him in an emergency meeting conducted over interstellar communications. The new CEO immediately reached out to Jake to begin talks with the Dragons about joint technology development. But for Jake, the politics and corporate maneuvering seemed far away. He was too busy working with Lisa and the former security guards to treat sick young dragons. More mothers had arrived after seeing the news broadcasts, bringing their children from across the continent. Jake's little research station had become a medical center, where human and dragon medicine worked together. The dragons shared their knowledge of crystal biology, while humans contributed their understanding of mineral supplementation and medical technology. 3 months later, Jake stood in the same spot where he had first met Big Blue, but everything was different. Where his small research station once stood, there was now a joint human-dragon medical facility. The hillside was covered with buildings designed by both species working together. The sick dragons had all recovered. More importantly, Jake and the dragon healers had figured out how to prevent the sickness from returning. They had developed sustainable mining techniques that provided humans with the materials they needed, while preserving the minerals essential for dragon biology. Jake was no longer just a researcher. He had become the first human-dragon liaison, responsible for coordinating the partnership between the species. Lisa worked alongside dragon scientists to develop new medical treatments that benefited both humans and dragons. Carlos Martinez had become the head of security for the joint facility, protecting both species from the few humans who still saw dragons as threats. His daughter had visited from Earth and had become best friends with several young dragons, playing games that crossed species barriers. Big Blue's child, the first young dragon Jake had treated, had grown into a healthy adolescent. Its scales were now a brilliant blue-green that seemed to glow with inner light. The young dragon had learned to communicate directly with human computers and spent its time helping translate between the species. Jake often walked to the top of the hill in the evenings to watch the sunset over the plains where humans and dragons now lived together. Sometimes Big Blue joined him and they would discuss plans for exploring other worlds as partners. "Human Jake," Big Blue would say through the translator, "you saved more than our children. You saved the friendship between our peoples." Jake always replied the same way. "You saved something too. You showed us that doing the right thing is more important than following rules or making money. You reminded us what it means to be human." The partnership between humans and dragons had changed both species. Humans had learned that their greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their capacity for compassion. Dragons had learned that not all strangers were enemies, and that sometimes help came from the most unexpected sources. Years later, when human and dragon ships explored the galaxy together, they carried a simple message to other worlds. True civilization was not measured by the power to take what you wanted, but by the wisdom to help those in need. And it had all started with a desperate mother bringing her dying child to a stranger, hoping for kindness in a vast and dangerous universe. Jake Morrison, the scientist who had chosen compassion over protocol, had become the man who taught two species that the greatest discoveries were not found in distant stars or alien artifacts, but in the simple act of caring for each other's children. The dragons never forgot the human who had risked everything to save their young. And humanity never forgot the lesson that their true strength lay not in conquest, but in the courage to extend a helping hand to those who needed it most. In the end, both species learned that the universe was not a place to be conquered, but a home to be shared. And it all began with one man who looked at a crying mother and chose to help, no matter the cost.